All right, welcome into another edition of Sports Spotlight. I am Alex Eisman, as always, joined by my buddy DeShawn Johnson. And it was a big weekend here in Flint, DeShawn. The Dort Financial Center was absolutely rocking on Sunday for this Claressa Shields fight. We got to do a little bit in terms of the lead up to going to the press conference, seeing some workouts. What was the energy, I guess, from your perspective, like as people are getting ready for this event?
I think it's similar but different than kind of what we've seen before with some of these fights here in Flint and at the Dort Financial Center. A lot of these fighters, obviously being from Michigan, whether it's from the Flint area or Grand Rapids area or wherever in the Mid-State, everyone just excited to be able to not only perform in front of their home fans, their home crowd, but obviously in a big place, the Dort Financial Center. It's quite the venue for these different boxing events. So I think just, as we were getting prepared into the week, everyone is super excited, not only to be able to fight, like I said, in front of their home crowd, but this is a Claressa Shields card. It's a little bit different than some of the other ones we've been dealing with before. I mean, just the sheer amount of people that are, that beforehand are going to be there, the excitement around it. So over and all, I mean, everyone's super excited to be able to kind of, like I said, not only are you doing this in front of, you're not far from home, you're able to do this, where you grew up, but you got all these people for Claressa Shields here out in the night too. So people are just super excited.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I'll tell you what, when I got there well before, the first fight was supposed to start, and the parking lot was already full. It was already full. People were filtering in. So it was really cool to see, like, of course people are going to be excited to watch Claressa fight, but these people were showing up to see a lot of the early fights too and support some of their local fighters. And one of the first ones that comes to mind for me, not a local fighter, but one of Claressa's closest friends, Samantha Worthington. She ended up getting the job done by decision and she had a great walkout. If you didn't see it, it was Flint Tropics themed. So that got everyone pretty fired up early on. They had all the matching outfits and stuff with the Tropics. That was pretty sweet. But outside of the theatrics of it, DeShawn, you got to watch her work out a little bit. What was your impression of her, kind of seeing her behind the scenes, I guess?
Well, I think the coolest thing about, being able to spend some time with Samantha and her team is just, obviously the reason that her name is, so heavily brought up with, the fact that she's not from the Michigan area is because the close relationship that she does have with Claressa Shields. I mean, they've been not only close friends, but, sparring partners and, just fighting together since early in the 2010s when they were both fighting in the Junior Olympics together. So I think, the biggest thing that you're able to see from Samantha is that she has a lot of similarities to Claressa as far as she is not so much a power fighter, but she is coming at you with every shot, every jab that she has in her arsenal until she's able to create a weakness in her fights, or she's able to find a slight and, whoever she's going up against. And just seeing, the work ethic and everything that she commits to before these fights, the last time I got to see Samantha, I mean, she was, still working on, the weight drop, making sure that she, during all these workouts, she's making sure she's getting her sweat on to drop all the extra water weight that she has. And you can see that it is no easy process. You hear about this from a lot of different boxers, how the dieting and how everything goes to make sure your health is good. Not only as she has a hard focus on that, but she's making sure that, she's taking every step of the way to get prepared for her fights. And then another thing that I was able to see from her is that she does have a really close relationship with religion and with God. So she uses that to empower every single one of her fights. She fights really close to, to staying with her religion. She uses it to empower her in every one of her fights. So many different things that you're able to see from her, just as a person and as a fighter. I mean, you can understand why her name's been being mentioned so much as one of the more up and coming female boxers.
For sure. And I know family, of course, is big with her too. She has her husband cornering her during her fights, and she looked really good. Like you said, she didn't get the knockout, but was still dominant and making things happen throughout every round. And I don't, if I remember correctly, and it's been a couple of days now, but I don't think she lost a round in her match. So she went in and took care of business, still undefeated. And right after her was another one of Flint's own, Leon Lawson III. And,
Yes.
and of course, people are going to be excited for him and rooting for him. And he did get a knockout. He looked like he was feeding off of that energy in the arena. I mean, he's for one of those higher weight classes, he's still so big, got huge reach, and that makes it difficult for anyone to deal with him in the ring. And he was just masterful. He really was. He was picking his shots, didn't expend too much energy at any given moment, and once he found the opening to get the KO, he went for it and got it.
Yeah, with Leon too, after seeing him the last time around, he's obviously now got back-to-back knockouts in the Dort Financial Center. He's, the Leon, of course, being a local guy, but he is also clearly on his way up towards, the rankings of the boxing world. We've got to see him quite a few different times now, and he comes from, a deep amount of boxing history, going to his father and his grandfather, and even, his relation to the Darrell brothers, who are obviously, legendary boxers here in the Flint area too. With Leon, I got to check out some of the sound that you went and talked to him with after this fact. And he mentions, the God-given abilities that he has of being so lengthy and, being able to still be so powerful with that. Sometimes you don't see those things, really intertwine that well. But Leon, he's really good at picking out his shots. He uses his length to his advantage. He's also really good at, at being a longer guy, having a close game defense. He doesn't let people really get too much under him all that much. So Leon, he's been so exciting to watch. And, truthfully, he definitely looks like he could be one of the next bigger names to continue to come out of Flint as he's been doing so far.
Absolutely, and we'll get to hear from Leon a little bit later in this show. Another person that really stood out to me on Sunday was Caroline Vare. We got to see her at the last Dort Financial Center card. Spoke to her a little afterwards, but in December she got a belt at women's featherweight, and really another decision win, but really it was never in question. She was in control for that entire fight, and now she had another belt on the line on Sunday and did the exact same thing. She showed off her cardio, her pace, and she was able to touch up her opponent and take home more hardware at Dort Financial Center. She's kind of becoming this I don't want to say a household name, but she's a familiar face now for fans in Flint. And I remember when we talked to her after the December fight, she was hungry to get back in there very soon, and she did, and showed that she doesn't need a whole lot of time off in between fights to continue at a high level, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's just a testament to, what she's able to do out there in the rink. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see her contest this last time around, but even just watching the last time she was in Dort, she's obviously very athletic, and cardio plays a big part into everything that she's doing. You can see her, outmoving, outweighting her opponents. A lot of times they're struggling to even get a full hit on her at different times throughout these rounds. And, obviously, you mentioned she got hardware back in December already, so this is the second time around. It just speaks to her experience and the training that she's been able to put forth to get into the situation she's from. Like you said, it's kind of funny thinking that she is kind of coming this household name here in Flint when she's obviously not from the area, So it is just super cool. All these fighters in general, being from the Flint area or not, it has been great to, continuously see their faces and this fan base that's here, not just in Michigan or Detroit, but also here in Flint, get to see these people constantly and kind of watch their career grow with them. You know what I mean? It's been so fun to be able to kind of just outlive this with all these boxers here being from the Flint area or not.
And not just boxers from the Flint area, but the crowd was behind every fighter from Michigan. And on the main card had two guys from out west in Grand Rapids. Joshua James Pagan, I know you spent some time with him as well. What was it like kind of seeing his training regimen and his preparation for this fight?
Pagan, he's a little bit of a different guy. I feel like there's different characteristics to boxing. And, someone like Clarissa, for example, she's very outgoing, she's very talkative. Pagan, he's a little different. He's a little bit more of a quieter guy. But I think where his strengths come in the ring, I think the guy's got a really good IQ. I think the way he's able to, kind of before his fights, he's taking a lot in hand. He's watching the tape. He's trying to figure out exactly what his opponent's strengths are and his weaknesses are. and then you kind of see him take that strictly into the ring. I also got to hear some of the sound from his fight, and you heard him talk about the adjustments that he had to make for this fight, and that's super important as a boxer as well. It's not always, you're going to go in there with the plan. And, as the famous boxing quote goes, everyone goes in there with a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So I think Pagan, he's one of those guys that are able to adjust really quick. And you can see he's quick in the ring. He's very fast. He's got some quick jabs, quick punches. So that's just another one of those guys that I feel like he's continuing to, kind of build on that Michigan boxer's name. And he's super fast hands, super quick movement. Excited to see what he's continuing to do.
And I'll tell you what, that fight, outside of the main event, because that's its own thing. That was, for me personally, that was my fight of the night. He went to absolute war in there. Ronald Ron was the guy that he fought, and they went at it. And they went the distance. And it's a guy who I feel like that was his biggest test so far in his boxing career. Against he went in undefeated. He was fighting a guy who already had a couple losses on his record. He gave him a run for his money, and that was just being able to get out of the other end in a war like that is huge for your confidence moving forward in your career. Like you've kind of seen the depths in there and been cut and been bleeding and been bruised and still be able to make those adjustments, like you said. So it was, he went to war in there. He showed a lot of heart, and that was really cool to see him
absolutely
continue and kind of take that next step. The other guy, Joseph Hicks from Grand Rapids, it was competitive early on, I think. But what Hicks really leaned on, and what I talked to him about after the fight, was he used his cardio maybe better than anyone that night. And he was saying, I don't know how true it is because I know how boxers talk, but he was saying he chose to finish the fight in the seventh round.
Yes.
Which I thought was funny. And when I think back on it, the crowd was super behind him as he was kind of touching him up and letting it loose. I think he wanted to maybe wait a little later, like until the very end. But once he saw blood in the water in terms of being able to get the KO, the crowd just lost it. And he was talking about afterwards how that just got him amped up and he had to go out and finish the job. It was cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't know exactly, like how true of the fact that he made that decision right then and there. But, speaking to that, one of the things that I was able to kind of recognize from, looking at some of the stuff from Hicks is that, when you're going up against the type of guy that he was going against to, and you can, you immediately get that sense of, oh, okay, he's trying to end this early. And if I can just wait him out, regardless of when he decided to, exactly end the fight per se, he was able to wait out his opponent and, kind of make him tire himself out, which is a completely different, approach to how some of the other guys we've been able to see, on the other side of that, being able to find, that weakness in their opponent and then use it against them for a big move. But Hicks able to kind of wait it out, let the guy tire himself out. And that's when you take advantage of that. So how much of a decision it was right in that moment, I'm not sure, but you can still see, the game plan there perfectly executed of, let this guy tire himself out a bit, and that's when I'll jump on him. So you've seen it, to a T right there from Hicks.
And before we get to the main event, got to talk about this co-main a little bit. We saw some of the antics at the press conference between Brandon Moore and Skylar Lacey.
Yes, we did.
They said some things. They said some crazy things. We do have that video posted on our YouTube channel if you'd like to see what things were said. I don't think it's appropriate for either of us to repeat it, but it was crazy, and it was a crazy end of the fight. Moore was winning pretty handily, and Lacey, you could tell, was pretty tired, and he just kept leaning on Moore. The ref had to separate him a couple times. He deducted a few points, and then all of a sudden, Lacey tackles Moore out of the ring, and it ends in a DQ. So I have not seen anything like that before. I'm not going to lie to you. It was pretty wild. I think the crowd was kind of getting fed up of what Lacey was doing and just kind of stalling. And so that DQ, he was going to win anyway. So a win's a win. for Brandon Moore,
Right.
but it was just a wild finish to the fight.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this one, obviously, from you guys and the rest of the team. What I can say about this, is just obviously you could tell before the fight there's a lot of animosity in this one. I mean, usually there's like a mutual feeling of obviously, this is the guy you're going up against. It's going to be a fight, but felt like there was a little bit extra, with these two guys from the start of all this. So I'm not surprised to hear about kind of how this outcome with. I both the guys, they seem like they to each of their own, as far as, what they're able to do in the boxing ring. But this one just kind of got a little bit out of hand. I feel like I'm not sure where all of that came from. And I'm with you. It was one of the most surprising things I've ever seen in a boxing ring. And I'm not sure I've ever seen anything quite like it.
Yeah. But it was a good little appetizer, I guess, for the main event. And before we get into it and get into, the details of the fight, talked to a couple of the other boxers on the card and spoke to them about what it's like, being a part of a Claressa Shields fight card.
When you got somebody like Claressa Shields fighting, especially at home, you don't get it often. So you better take advantage of it while you can. That's why all these people are here, because she's somebody here in Flint. The kids look up to her, and even older people look up to her. So it's a good thing for the city.
It was amazing. The atmosphere here is always amazing, especially when Claressa fighting. Like, I don't know, that's the most people I ever see in Michigan when she fighting. So it's amazing. I love how much they support her and how much they come out and support all of the local fighters.
I'm happy, you know what I'm saying? Because when we was kids, ever since kids, you know what I'm saying? Me and Claressa started at the same time down there. And in the amateurs, we was both undefeated. And it was always like, oh, Claressa undefeated, Leon undefeated. And it's just a blessing because, like, you know what I'm saying? We fight on the same card, you know what I'm saying? It's a dream come true kind of.
So Anthony Durrell, Joseph Hicks, Leon Lawson, all talking about what it's like being a part of this spectacle. And that's exactly what it was. I really wish that I could go and relive the moment where, like, they showed her on the screen for the first time and they had her walk out, and anytime she put together a good combo on Perkins, like the sound of that arena, like the roof was just going to come off of it. It was so cool to witness.
And that's exactly what happens. That's what I was talking about in the beginning. These Claressa Shields fights, I mean, obviously with the statue of, boxer that she is, it does, rightfully so, bring a little bit more attention than maybe some of the other stuff we've had going on here. And I remember the very first time I was ever to see Claressa in person, just a couple of years ago at Little Caesars Arena. And I mean, the same descriptions, the same feelings that you're mentioning, I experienced it all back then. Her walkout, I mean, was surreal. It was like a walkout I had never seen before. She's got live rappers there doing everything for her, and you can almost barely hear her just because of the excitement that, and it's so cool to think about it. She's a local girl from Flint, and where she is now, you got all these supporters and everyone here to see you. It is super cool. I mean, like you said, from the first moment everyone realizes that she's in the building, I mean, the atmosphere changes completely.
Yeah, well, and she as she always does, rose to the occasion. Had Perkins on the ropes a couple times in that fight early. Looked super fast, and her punches were landing hard. And she was able to. She got into a little bit of trouble, kind of like the mid to late portion of the fight. Perkins got her in a corner and landed a couple good ones, but she found a way to get herself out of it. And then in the 10th, I actually, in the moment, thought she got the knockout before the bell. I thought she ended up getting the finish.
Right.
It did go to the cards, but when she put Perkins on her butt with that right hook, I mean, just chills all over my body. Like, and that's exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to prove that she could hang with heavyweights, that she had heavyweight punching power. And whether she got the KO or not, she showed that on Sunday night.
Exactly. No, that's what I was going to say. Claressa talked about this, in the weekend before. She's kind of always thought this is the division that she truly belonged in. And she talked about fighting through all these different weight classes for the history of, kind of for the culture of everything. But fighting in the heavyweight is kind of where she's always felt that she's belonged. She's kind of felt like that's been able to help her, as far as like power and everything goes. And like I said, not able to get the knockout tonight, but she still had an excellent showing of the power that she's truly capable of. I know the one punch that you're talking about specifically late in this one. I mean, once Danielle got back up, there was a smile on her face. I heard, she knew, when a big hit like that, everyone knew, from Danielle to everyone in the back of Dort Financial Center. So, being able to see Claressa, the things she does so gracefully in the ring, she only continues to, show that she's still in this game and she is so here. I mean, it has been quite the run that she's been on. And, obviously, another thing that she talked about was, she's not going to stop until it's enough. And who's to say that this is still enough for Claressa Shields?
Yeah, well, we got to catch up with her after her big win, too. Now the first ever undisputed women's heavyweight champ.
Whenever I hit Danielle, and especially when I buzzed her in the third round, I think it was third, and then when I dropped in the 10th, I heard it was like fireworks going off all over the arena. It was just crazy. I was like, wow. I fought many places, but it is nowhere like fighting in Detroit and fighting in Flint. I'm like, fighting in Flint and fighting up in Detroit, I mean, they got the best fans in the world to me. Like, they always show up for me. They make a lot of noise, and it's not ever a quiet round. Ever. So I just thank them for being so supportive and just sticking behind me since I was a little kid. And even my first coach, Jason Crutchfield, was here today. And listen, if he's happy with my performance, I'm happy. So he was happy. Flint is a different type of place. I could tell you that, like, the people that we have here, they are just so, they are fight fans for one. They're so supportive, and they just, take you for who you are. So them even saying, whip that trick, you would never hear that in no other women's boxing match ever in history, because it's just not even something that people even accept that come from women. People accept that from me here coming from Flint, and they understand me, and they know that, listen, I'm just as hood, just as street, but I'm also business and savvy, and I'm very smart. So they accept me for the full package, and I just love them so much for that. I'm a 17-time world champion now, 4-time undisputed. I don't even know what to say. I'm 16-0. That's my first time saying this since it happened. I'm 16-0. I tried to pick up my 4th knockout today. I didn't, so I'm 16-0 with 3 knockouts. But I really couldn't be prouder, and I'm just happy to be an advocate for women's boxing and just push the game forward.
She spoke about being an advocate for women's boxing, pushing the game forward, and that's kind of a good segue. And what we're going to talk about to finish off our show today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Of course, Claressa, one of the biggest and most important figures in women's sports today. So it's really a privilege to be able to cover her fights and talk to her one-on-one. She's been great to us. So we appreciate her for that. I'm super glad that we got to watch her get a win in her hometown. But DeShawn, let you talk a little bit about, what women in the sports field, in the sports world rather, have made an impact on you both in your personal and professional life.
I'll talk with a little bit of a professional life, and this is both. I would like to say, honestly, both the examples I would talk about are both a little personal and professional. One of the biggest women in sports that I have the biggest respect for is, obviously Dawn Staley and what she's been able to do at the college basketball, for, the women's college basketball game. It's almost unprecedented kind of the stuff she's been putting together, in just her short time at South Carolina. So I got the chance to meet Dawn Staley last year while I was in South Carolina for March Madness, and just getting to, have a quick chat with her and just, being able to see the human being side of her was something that I don't think a lot of people get to see all the time. She's very intense on the sideline, and her job requires her to be, and that's how she's been able to kind of produce a lot of the greatness. So Dawn Staley is one of the, I look up to her as a head coach and the program that she's been able to put down. I actually look up to a lot of different women's college basketball coaches. Obviously I did a lot of coverage of that when I was in college. Robin Freilich is another one over at Michigan State. She's done a lot for not just, the Spartans in this past year and a half, but overall for the game of college basketball and the women's side of everything, to what she's done at Bowling Green and a couple D2 national championships there. It's amazing to see the ground that, different women coaches are making in this sport. And hopefully we'll continue to see that progress, with small bits of it, in the NFL and the NBA now. And another side of, women in sports that I really like to give, just a quick shout out to is obviously while the time I spent in college and even now, there's so many different women on the broadcasting side that I feel like don't always get enough credit. So I just, I'd love to give a big shout out to them. I worked with some great broadcasters, some great female broadcasters in my time in college, and they showed me the way for a lot of different things. So on both sides of the game, you also got some great athletes that you want to mention too, but athletes, coaches, and of course broadcasters and the people that allow us to be able to share those sports all over, in the sports game and in sports broadcasting. So a big shout out to them. And something that we'd like to ask you guys to do, tell us, who are your favorite, women in sports, whether it's a player, it's a coach, it's a broadcaster. There's some great names out there, and we'd like to hear from you guys personally. Who are some of your favorite women in sports, as we kind of come around this, today being National Women in Sports Day?
For sure, and hopefully to encourage some of that going on, I'll go on with my list too. First, I want to shout out my mom. She is a former swimmer at University of Pennsylvania, and so obviously the most important woman in my life. So I love you, Mom. Great woman in sport. She was swam at Shrine Catholic in Royal Oak. So she came up in Michigan and ended up swimming at UPenn for a few years. And then when I was in high school, my water polo coach, Reb Godek, she was like my mom when I was at school, basically. And I still talk to her to this day. See her when I have any opportunity that I can. She still checks in on me and some of my other friends and former teammates back there. So shout out to you, Reb. And then when I was in Wyoming, one of my favorite ever people to work with was their women's basketball coach, Heather Ezell. Great person. Always made time for me. Always made sure, and the players love her too. Great coach. She's done a lot of great things with the UW program. And shout out to all the UW basketball players too. Shout out to all the Cowgirls. And of course, shout out to all the coaches and girls athletes, high school, college, pro, that we get the opportunity to cover here too. I think that's, it's why we do it. We love Absolutely. Being able to cover sports and see, everything that these athletes are able to accomplish.
Absolutely. And another one, Alex, I got shout out to all the team moms out there. Team moms are a huge part, of every little league team. Even when I was in high school, without the team moms there, I don't know that we would have ever fully made it through seasons. Players forgetting stuff, snacks, and everything like that. Shout out to all the team moms out there.
Absolutely. And less connection. I want to shout out Simone Biles. She might be the greatest women's athlete I've ever seen in appointment television. Like, never met her. I will say, I had the chance to meet Kelsey Plum, and She is super cool. She's a hooper, and also the way that she handled Caitlin Clark breaking her NCAA scoring record, so much grace, like very humble. So that was really cool. She was great. It was actually it was at the national championship. She was rooting for Washington, and obviously I'm there pulling for Michigan. So we had a good little back and forth there. But no, she was great to talk shop a little bit with, and she's obviously a great basketball player and Absolutely. A really important part of women's basketball as a sport too. So shout out her and shout out Simone Biles for just 100%. Being the GOAT. Not enough said. That's that's all it is for her. And yeah, like DeShawn said, comment, send in photos, and just share all the important women figures in sports that mean a lot to you personally or just from afar. It's really cool, and they make a huge impact for everyone, including us, for sure.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week with another sports spotlight, but appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Oh.
It's still live.